party.
Honestly, like your experience with resting heart rate before going to bed is important. So I'd like for you to share about that. But in general, the concept behind resting heart rate is the idea that we are attempting to achieve a lower resting heart rate when we sleep. And that's because resting heart rate is a marker for parasympathetic nervous system activation, and for adequacy of sleep. The higher sleep duration you get, the more recovered you are, the higher your resting heart rate will be, and the more activated your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and relax version of your nervous system. So we're certainly using resting heart rate to track and monitor our success on a nightly basis in terms of how well we are resting our bodies. And the goal should be that you stay at your baseline and or slightly lower. Now, things will determine where your resting heart rate baseline is. For example, your aerobic fitness. The more aerobically fit you are, the lower your resting heart rate will be. Traditionally, the younger you are, the lower your resting heart rate will be, although age is not necessarily predictive of that. It's just that as we get older, we often lose some fitness and lose restfulness. So it tends to creep up. But in general, we should be focusing for a lower resting heart rate. Now, what you do, Brian, which I think is super interesting, and I think you should share with the listeners, is tracking your resting heart rate prior to sleep as opposed to the lowest heart rate you've had while you're sleeping, which is what most of these devices like Whoop and Oura and things like that do. What are you doing there, Brian?
What Mike said about resting heart rate is exactly right. And my experience has been this, is that my sleep depends upon my resting heart rate before bed. And so I've tried to structure my entire life around this idea of things that increase my resting heart rate are bad. Of course, excluding exercise, like that's a different topic. Things that lower my resting heart rate are good. And then you can map your daily life habits and decisions on these two, whether it goes up or whether it goes down. So for example, when you eat food close to bedtime, your heart rate goes up. And when your heart rate goes up, your sleep quality goes down. If you have a fight with someone right before bed, your heart rate goes up, your sleep goes down. If you are on your screens or working and you're in a high stress or in a more aroused state, heart rate goes up, sleep goes down. And so you start pattern matching all these things in your life, where anything that increases your heart rate is going to lessen the quality of your sleep. And it goes back to what Mike said, is the increase in the heart rate is you're activating your sympathetic nervous system, either in terms of stress or some arousal or like metabolic activity to digest food. And so I've tried to build my entire life around this one number to lower my heart rate before bed, which means it determines what I eat, when I eat, how I do a nighttime wind down routine. So for example, I'm trying to resolve my internal stress and my worries, trying to avoid rumination. I'm trying to have a 30 to 60 minute block of time before bed where I can turn screens off, go for a walk, meditate, read a book, like take it easy, but have a demarcation between work day and rest day. But I've built all these sets of habits around how to reduce my resting heart rate in that final moment before bed. And that will then boost sleep quality.
Can I ask a question, Brian? Maybe it's a personal question. Do you experience anxiety?
I think I experience anxiety in the form of that my mind is always working on problems. And if it hasn't solved the problem in a way that I feel like is appropriate, my mind will just continue to grind on that problem until it feels like it's actually addressed it.
Just because like the description that you gave around checking your resting heart rate before sleep, like I could just see, like personally, I see myself doing, if I did that on a regular basis, I would struggle if I checked it and it were elevated, because I would be like, oh, I'm going to have a bad night of sleep. I'm guaranteed to have a bad night of sleep. I'm screwed. Like, and then I will inevitably have a bad night of sleep because I now have anxiety about having a bad night of sleep. Like sleep anxiety is a thing that a lot of people have to worry about. Yeah. So like, I love the fact that you have found this, like check my resting heart rate before I go to sleep to know how I'm going to sleep thing. Like, but I could see how for some people who maybe run a little hotter, that might actually, it might be like a loop that it puts them in, that it makes it harder for them to get good sleep. I don't know your thoughts on that. Has anybody ever expressed that to you or thought?
Yeah, and I'm curious, Brian, like when you do see an elevated heart rate, what's your experience of it before bed?
Yeah, I mean, this happened actually on Tuesday night when Kate and I, we were actually finishing up the day. We had eaten late. I rolled the dice in deciding to eat to get my calories for the day. And I did a quick check on my resting heart rate. And it was, I think, 53 beats per minute. typically by that point, I'm around like 46 to 47. And then by the time I put my head on the pillow, I'm 44 beats per minute. And so I did say to Kate, oh no, like this is a challenging situation because I know that at this level of heartbeat, and I'm in a room that is not my home environment, my mattress is not cooled. So I know these circumstances are going to probably create a troubled environment. And sure enough, it happened. And so maybe, did I psych myself out by saying that? Possibly. But I would say that now that I've been so attuned to my sleep pattern for so many years, I can almost guess exactly what's going to happen with my heart rate, my stress, my REM, my deep. It just feels so algorithmic to me that I guess the way I think about it, Mike, is my body is so predictable with the inputs that I don't feel like I really psych myself out. It just feels it's inevitable. And that's true if my heart rate is low or heart rate is high. But I think your point is correct that a lot of people don't have wearables because they wake up in the morning and if they see they got a bad score, they're like, now I feel terrible. And they feel terrible about themselves the entire day because the algorithm told them they feel terrible. So yeah, I know it's a thing and people struggle with that. And I think it's a great point. I personally don't. I really love the data. And whether it affects me or not, it doesn't bother me if it affects me or not, but it does seem like the patterns are very stable. What I see is what I get.